So something people ask me all the time is, Kelly, how did you get your first client? So first off, my very first client was not an ideal client. My first client, a friend paid me to do a resume for her, and it was awful. And I love to tell everybody that story because a lot of times your first experience and your first paying client might not be exactly what you thought you were going to do. But luckily, stuck with it. And my first really good ideal client were a couple, Jamie and Brian. And the way that I got that client was I had been networking out in my community. I was a member of my Chamber of Commerce. And funny thing is they were looking for someone to hire to bring into their house while they were having a pool table delivered and installed. And they wanted to make sure that the walls didn't get wrecked. And so what they did is they reached out to the Chamber of Commerce. They were like, do you know anybody that does this? But here's the thing that most people miss out on is it wasn't just being part of the chamber. It wasn't just because I was listed in their listing. It was because I had built relationships with movers and shakers within my chamber. And it was those people who then said, when Jamie called in to ask, do you know someone who can help with this? They were like, I know the exact person. So that was my first client. That's how I got my first client. But how I really got my first client was I was clear in what it was that I was doing, meaning I didn't try to be all things to all people, which I think is a big mistake that people make, so that when they were calling looking for, we need help for this thing, the person who was at the chamber knew exactly what they needed and knew exactly who to call, which was me. And because of that, that relationship then went on to be a 3-year relationship. And the reason why it went from just a pool table delivery to becoming a 3-year relationship was because when I was onboarding my new clients, I asked a series of questions. I made myself an invaluable resource to them, and I helped them envision other ways to use my services so that it didn't end up being just a one-time job. So they originally, I think, were planning on hiring me for just that one-time job, but because when I met with them the first time, I went through this intake process and they immediately were like, yes, we need you. We want to hire you. We want to have you come back on a weekly basis. And I'm going to put a link down below for my exact intake process that I use. It's called the Concierge Starter Kit, so that you can, when you are onboarding your clients, you want to be making sure that you're asking valuable questions so that it doesn't just end at that one-time gig. Now, of course, sometimes it's going to be just a one-time gig, and other times it's really you and your authority and your leadership for your clients. I know you think you're just running errands for people, but you're not. You're actually becoming an integral part of many of their families. And when you think of it this way, for me, it became easy because as a registered nurse, one of my greatest skill sets is the ability to anticipate needs. Most people don't think about anticipating needs, but if you can train yourself to anticipate needs, your clients will want to use your services over and over again. So what started as just a pool table delivery became weekly visits, errand running, grocery shopping, doing things around the house, folding laundry. And one of my favorite things that I got to do for this family is they belong to a CSA, if you know what that is. It's a farm share, and I would actually go to the farm and I would pick berries and pick beans for them as part of their weekly farm share, which, how cool was that? And what's super funny is there was somebody else who I had met networking out in the community, and he happened to be there that day. He belonged to the same farm that my clients had belonged to, and I was out there literally picking green beans and picking okra and picking berries. And he looked at me and he said, oh, do you belong to this farm? And I said, no, I'm actually here for my client. And he said, people pay you for that? Yes, John, people do. All right, friends, so I would love to know in the comments below, how did you get your first client? What was your first client experience? I would love to know.